Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA Wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about tomorrow. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Folks, I'm glad you could join me this evening. Boy, what a market. Every time you think this thing is going to die, it takes off again. I made a reference to it today in a Rocky Balboa market. It just hangs on the ropes forever. You know, it doesn't come down. It never goes down to the ground. Never goes and falls to the canvas and then back up the other way. You know, I also put a piece out today on Market Watch. I wrote it last night. It came out late this afternoon. That we got volatility reigns, but at the same time the strength remains, and that was certainly true today. As we look at these indexes, you know, it certainly looked like we were going to get some sort of a setup here to get a failure, but that's not what happened. This market just rocked right back higher. Where the money looked like it was leaving, it all came back. It's almost like they turn a switch on every day, and that switch is either we're going to put risk on today or we're going to take it off. If you're putting it on, you put it all in the, you know, the SMHs, you put it in the technology, you put it in the chip stocks, you put it in energy, you put it all into risk stuff, and you take it out of the XLU, the XLP, and so forth, right? And out of bonds. If you take risk off, then you flip it around and go the other way, right? You stick it all over there and you take it out of these. And it's this way each and every day, it seems. It's all one or the other, nothing in between. Let's look at the ending numbers. We had the Dow up, actually it wasn't up that much, of 0.5%, 90 points, 16,336. S&P's got up almost 3/4 of a point, 1872. Remember, it was like, you know, starting the week, you know, we were under 1850. And here we are, 1872, clawing back almost to the highs. 1874 is the number on this thing. Looks like it's going to try to bust through that tomorrow with Yellen doing a press conference and the Fed giving out its comments. Composite 53 1/3 higher, 43.33. The NDX that was up 1.25%. The NDX almost the same. 37.06 was the close, up 44. And the Russell was the leader. Almost 1.5%, 1.41% higher, 1205. Small caps really got things going. We had gold down pretty big today. It was down as much as about 22 at one point, and down somewhere around 16. Silver was down as well. Oil actually bucked the trend, was up $1. We had the bonds up a decent, you know, a little bit, not that much. Dollar was up too, but just barely. The dollar just looks like it's going to crumble here, and it just keeps hanging on. I'm not sure what's keeping it up, and it's kind of amazing anyway. You know, with, I mean, if you think about the currency situation, you've got of all the central banks that have been easing, this is the only one that's starting to take back some of it, and yet the dollar just keeps going down. I'm not sure what that's telling me. There's got to be some message in there, and maybe you guys are smarter than I and you can tell me, but whatever it is, it doesn't want to go down. I mean, it doesn't want to come back up, and it won't quite break down. It's just hanging there. Let's go and look at these markets. Let me pop over here. Since we have the NDX, so I guess we'll just start with that one, and then we'll fly over to the others. So today, you know, big day up. Yesterday, it looked like we were going to get some sort of an ABCD structure to downside, and that's still possible. But at this point, it's not going to be a big one if, in fact, it happens. Now, remember, this had been one of the strongest ones on the way up. As we come back down, right, there is still the potential for some sort of an ABCD structure. Of course, the farther you go up, the less deep it's going to be. You know, it probably would come in around the bottom of this if it were to turn tomorrow and head straight down. But it looks to me like now this is going to try to test this top. That high, and this is that this is the big bar down again, and these bars keep showing up. And actually, if I take this off of here, you can see there's actually an overlap here. So on the NDX, this is the key area. And the March 13th bar is kind of the key bar in all these indexes. It shows up at different price points in the various indexes and on most of the sectors as well. Here it's 37.20. We closed in at 37.06. 14 points. It's nothing. I mean, we can hit it tomorrow and bust over it. That's going to be the key point here on the NDX. Volume rose a little bit today, but still pretty light comparatively. Again, volume doesn't mean a lot until you actually test something, and we're not testing anything. You can kind of look at volume as it gets close to something, and it is getting close here, but it's not there yet. And so the test will be, when it gets there, what does the volume look like, and what does the test do? If I go over and flip over to the S&P 500, which we usually start with, I'm saying 1874 is the number, 1874.40. That's the top of that same bar, right? And if you look at these, you know, that's the bar that has the volume. This one actually has a little wider zone up there at the top. But I suspect if it gets over this March 13th bar, it's going to run right back up to the top, because that's basically the top up there. So, you know, this is the number tomorrow, and you're sitting right underneath it tonight. Volume, yeah, it's not there. It's very close at this point in terms of the price point is trying to reach and do the test zone. Test it into the first part of resistance today. That will redraw again tomorrow, and there will only be 2 bars above it. It looks to me like it's going to test in the morning, or it's going to certainly test on the Fed news tomorrow. So S&Ps, NDX, they're all looking the same. Let's look at the IXIC. Also has the same sort of a bar setup, same sort of a structure as the NDX. It's got a little wider area that it's got a zone in there that it's going to try to get over. But all of these, if they get over this zone, folks, believe me, they're going to the tops, and they're probably going to try to break through them. They're going to have the, you know, they certainly, you know, if you're a short seller, you're selling here, you're not going to sell up there. This is where your stops are. Stops are going to be above that March 11th, March 13th band, and almost across the board. So if you break through that, you can almost guarantee they're probably going to pop the top. All right, they're going to get over that high at least, and potentially just push right through it. And I have seen so many V-shaped reversals over the last 4 or 5 years. I'm almost dreaming these things now. Well, we got another one. This is a smaller one, but it's doing the same thing again, right back the other way. And that, despite tells, which normally give you a pretty good signal that the sellers are in control. Well, forget control with respect to anything with the sellers. It's back the other way, heading back to the tops. Dow Jones, let me see what it did today. Yeah, it's doing the same thing, coming up that same bar. We already looked at the NDX. Let's look at the Russell. The Russell actually is the leader today because the Russell got over those areas. So if we look at the March 13th bar, and we look at the, this is the March 13th, this is the March 11th, it got over both of them. High is 1204.39 on that 11th. It closes over it. So the Russell, now the Russell was set up a little differently also with respect to the top, because the Russell actually is the only one that left some volume at the top. So the Russell looks to me like if it gets over the top, You know, that's the key one here, but it certainly has gotten over this, and that kind of gives you an idea that these indexes are going to try to do the same thing tomorrow, because the Russell right now is becoming the leader once more. So, you know, last night I could have put a big bet on saying that this thing wasn't going to do this today. But you know, that's why this is probability based, because you can't know for sure what's going to happen. You can only look to the clues. Clues were giving us an idea that we were going to come back down today. You know, test a little bit higher, come back down. Not to be back the other way, right back up there, going for the tops again. Rocky Balboa, here we come. All right, let's pop over. I assume the sectors are going to show me about the same thing. Let me pop over here and see what these guys look like. So IYT. And remember the sectors, you know, what's amazing to me is if you looked at this 2 nights ago, and we did, you would have swore there's no way this thing's going to go back to the highs, right? Because you had retest regenerates that failed. You had multiple swing point lows breaking. You had, I mean, I can go down the list, one item after another that would suggest that the odds-on favorite of the move is not going to be highs again, but some sort of a ABCD structure to the downside. And as I said, it still could play out, but on most of these now, ABCD structures down or nothing. I mean, you know, if we take this one, it goes to there, it goes nowhere. So most of these have, you know, have already kind of defeated any kind of substantial move down. You know, the best you can say if you're bearish is that they're going to be some sort of a range trade still. But even that right now is starting to feel like a stretch again. And look at this. I mean, even here as we look at the IYT, we got tails 3 days in a row and we're going straight back up. Let's look at the semis. The semis have been the strongest. The semis, I believe, are back at the highs just about. They're going to test those highs tomorrow. Semis will probably be the one to watch. If they get over it, stay over it tomorrow, that's a pretty good indication that the others are going to follow. And the semis, you know, if I go back to that, the semis, again, was another one telling us this thing wanted to try to come lower. You know, big wide price spread, heavy volume off the top, you know, low volume right back to the top. XLB, let's see what this sector's doing. You know, nothing on the way up, just climbing back up there though. That one just doesn't look very healthy though. So XLB would not be, if I'm going to try to play the long side, wouldn't be exactly where I'd go look at. You know, they'll rotate, you know, if this market goes higher, they'll rotate back into these things like they always do. But, you know, on the first trip back up, if you're going to break out, you want to be with the strongest one, and the XLB is not one of those. XLE was actually a pretty good leader today. Same sort of thing, no volume, going back to the top. It's over the 13, climbing back up to the 11th bar. XLI. Actually, let's go to the financials next. XLF, same sort of thing. And that one's trying to come back to the 13th bar. XLY, you know, so I'm looking at these. These don't look as good as the indexes. XLI, same sort of thing. Nothing coming back to that bar. At least the indexes have decent volume. These have horrible volume. XLK, this had a lot of strength today, yeah, and it blows right past it. So if you're thinking about the NDX, you can see how this one is already over, just like the Russell, already over the 35.72 and 36.55, attacks it and closes a penny under it. Doesn't have the volume, but it's up there. So tomorrow that will be the last resistance zone again. Semis, XLK, these are the two to watch tomorrow to see if they break out. They're the ones, again, you go to strength on the first breakout after some sort of congestion, and that would be these guys. XLP, just still hanging up there. I can't say anything bad about that one. XLU probably got to pull back a little bit, over under, not really extended, but probably retraces a little bit. Healthcare, XLV, Again, same thing. They're all doing the same thing. Coming back up, going to test into that 13th and 11 bars in the XLY. And that looks horrible. So, you know, what do you say when you look at something like this? Because indexes look stronger than your sectors. Sectors are kind of like, it's almost like they're pulling the sectors along based on the indexes. I'm sitting here rubbing my head as I'm talking to you because I'm just kind of befuddled that we got as strong a move as we did in the indexes, given what I see here in the sectors. I thought the sectors would be stronger, but they're not. Let me before I give up on this idea, let me move over to the ox market. And let's look at 2 or 3 things here. First of all, let's start with the dollar, because this dollar just looks like it's going to break. Man, it can't lift. Yeah, that's just a horrible looking chart. And you got the Fed tomorrow, so I can't. I mean, the Fed has, you know, talking about the Fed tomorrow. Let's take a second and go to there. The Fed has telegraphed 2 things. And of course, it is going to be Yellen's first conference, so how she sets that tone, that first impression, that's going to be a big deal just because it's the first impression. And I doubt it's going to be the same as when she was up on the Hill, because up on the Hill, they don't really slap you around too much. In the press conference, you get a lot more pointed questions. So we'll see how she does with respect to the press conference. The more interesting thing is that the Fed has pretty much indicated 2 important things. One, they're not going to raise rates, and they're going to change that language more than likely to move away from the quantitative language that was probably that has been in place, where you reach 6.5 unemployment, you're under 2, you're over, you're at or over 2% inflation, we're going to raise rates. Well, they don't want to tell you that no more. Now they're going to tell you, and this has been telegraphed, and I'm sure there's going to be some sort of language change, and I assume this market's rallying as a result of that, and maybe that's the answer for the dollar question, right? And that we're going to move away from quantitative to qualitative. In other words, we're going to say, well, when it kind of gets this way, then we're going to think about that, right? It's going to become much more mushy. You're not going to have any hard numbers to work with to tell you, we're going to raise rates. And then we'll kind of guide you along at some point when we think we will, right? And give you advance notice. That's a big change. Market seems to like that idea because the converse of it is we're almost reaching those targets where rates are going to get raised. Okay, are you going to raise them? Well, no, we're not going to do that. And so I assume that's putting the pressure on the dollar. That's also giving these markets the ability to rise again. The other item that is not going to change is that's going to be brought or has been broadcast is that they will continue the 10 billion drain off that QE that they've been doing. And the way they're able to do that, of course, is manipulating the qualitative instead of the quantitative. Here's the FXE, big high volume high. That suggests to me that off this Fed news tomorrow, we're going to pop up there and test this thing and probably fail, which would probably finally be some strength in the dollar. If the dollar strengthens, we should see gold hit. Now, gold got hit today. Pretty good volume yesterday. Some more volume today. Some more price depreciation today. Closes a gap. Yeah, so now this is, if there is a market that should come back, this is definitely one, right? But we've seen that most of these markets don't want to come back even though they should. You come off the highs, you come off of it with volume escalation, right? Now you fill your gap, right? This thing should trade back at least into the bottom of this zone. and then we'll see what it does from there. Yeah, you could get a little bounce tomorrow, but I suspect this thing is going to trade lower. So if the dollar is going to trade lower, that probably also suggests that we will see some sort of a bounce in the dollar. I mean, excuse me, if the gold is going to trade lower, the dollar. Gold has had great volume flows, though, if you look at this, right? I mean, these are nice volume flows. And I believe they kind of look the same on the weekly. Let's look at the weekly again. Yeah, comparatively, I mean, they've been decent. So, nothing special, but decent. So now we're going to finally get a retrace, it looks like here. And I think silver is even worse off. It has been and still is. It can't even get up to those. You know, the gold is up here. This one didn't even get close. Let's see what the daily looks like real quick. Yeah, about the same. All right, let me look at bonds, and then I'll flip over and answer some questions. Yeah, bonds still want to test those highs, and I suspect they're going to do it. I don't know if it comes tomorrow or not. I don't see a good tell here. You just undercut it and you flip back around. You know, this is still just zone trading for now. All right, let's go to your questions. I see a few on the boards. I had one faxed to me, not faxed, texted to me. You can tell my age, huh? Faxed. That was American Airlines question. Had to do with AAL. And let me see, could you provide your assessment? You didn't give me a time frame, so I'll just look at a couple of them for you. So you had a bunch of moves up. You have some good volume back here. Really nothing over here. Let's see what the weekly looks like. Yeah. All right, so you know, American Airlines doesn't look bad into this on the weekly. Doesn't look bad into the 34.20 down to 33. Now let's go back to the daily. 33 to 34.20. Let's see what that looks like. 33. That's your swing point lows. 34.20. Yeah. So, well, you know, right now it doesn't look bad. What you really want to watch if you're long this or want to be long this is you got to watch these when they start lining up like this. This one, the higher one, is not that big of an issue. The two lower ones are, because these are right at each other in terms of price point. You got this big high volume bar coming in here. I would think that's your buy point. You have tight stops underneath it if you're going to buy it there. That top looks like, what is that, 34.38? So somewhere around 34.30, 34.40, that would be the buy area as this comes back. One thing you should notice, when the TA Today charts give you support this far back, what are they telling you? They're telling you that that's where the algorithms see significant support should show up, right? Why is that? Well, it looks at high price, it looks at wide price spread bars, it looks at volume, it looks at swing points, and it ranks them all, and it looks at, you know, multiple congruence of those things, and it ranks them. And so when you don't have anything way up here in this half of the chart, that's just saying you got a lot more danger. So if you're going to play with this and buy this on this bar, you got to have some stops right up underneath it. You just can't give it a lot of room. Right, so that's like a 30-cent stop, and I would force it to come down if I were going to buy it, and I would see how I test it and see that it holds, and then buy if I'm going to. Okay, let's look at the rest of these. So that's that one. Question here about EEM and VWO. Both of these are emerging markets. So the EEM got a nice little pop, comes up, not really much volume here. Let me see, what was the question? Please look at these for resistance here. Time to trim, short term, long. Well, I think you can get a little bit more. You know, the time to trim was actually yesterday, right? Because it was a failure yesterday of that big bar. But today it got over it, and it got into the top of this one, 39.43. 39.43 closed right at it. You know, I think you're probably going to get another 30-40 cents out of this thing. $39.80 or so. bottom at swing point high. That's where it's trying to get back to. That little congruence area right there. So I think you'll probably get more out of it. Let's look at what the other one looks like. VMO or VWO. So VWO. And it's going to look about the same. Yeah, almost identical. It's the exact same chart basically. Yeah, there's no volume, but you know, it's over them. And this one is actually over the highs. 38.99, 38.93. So yeah, they look the same. For grins, let me quickly go over and see what the HSI did. Not much there. It should bounce tonight if it's going to. How about the Brazilian market? Let's see what that one looks like. Yeah, nice pop there. So back up into a resistance. So doing a retest regen, had volume though. I should probably climb a little bit higher. And it's within 6 bars, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 6 bars, so that also says it can get a little bit higher. How about the Indian market? That one's been on a rampage. That's been the strongest one, and it fell last night. That one should come back. So yeah, I don't know. It looks to me like you'll probably get a little bit more out of these. Doesn't look bad. MW, Men's Warehouse. So this is a retailer. You fade back. Wasn't there news that this was a takeover? I believe this was a takeover play is why this thing's been pushing up. So and they haven't been taken over, or they're taking someone over. I don't know which one it is. This chart looks like they're the ones being acquired. So you have to be careful if that's what's going on here. So yeah, so it's fading back, light volume. Technically, it's a buy here, but you need to go check the news, because I'm pretty sure that one is a takeover play, and if so, I could probably look it up for you right quick. If so, then you have to be a lot more careful about wading into the middle of it, because this price appreciation is a result of the expectation that that's going to happen if that's what's going on. And I'm popping over to quickly look. There's a material agreement. Yeah, Josh. So JOS. These two are trying to take each other over. So Men's Warehouse is trying to take over them. Yeah, I'd be careful here. This one is appreciated as a result of the combination of these two companies, and I'd probably look somewhere else. Now you're into arbitrage stuff, and I think you're better served probably just to head somewhere else. All right, I'm out of time. Programming note: Thursday, taking the day off again, celebrating the Persian New Year. So we'll be off this Thursday, no show. We are also have started investigating other forms of transmission. I've been pretty displeased here over the last 2 weeks with all the delays that we're getting off a live stream. And I'm not willing to pay the kind of money they want to get the kind of service that I need and that you deserve. And there are other alternatives. So at some point we will probably switch over to a different supplier or a medium supplier, and give you the best service that we can, as we always try to do, not only with our broadcast, but of course with our tools, our comments, our portfolios. Folks, tell a friend, tell two, help us help you. I'm L.A. Little. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night. Take care. I'll see you here tomorrow. Let's see if yelling can push them over the top. Hey, boy, they've set it up to do it again. Have a great night, folks. Take care. Good night.